Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our introduction to the Minor Prophets. Looking forward so much to our study of the Minor Prophets together, as the writing is unparalleled and the messages are so relevant to what we're experiencing today. But because they do address the current political climate, international climate, and the social injustices of their times, we need to talk about the times and the themes of the Minor Prophets before we begin. Yesterday, we talked about the fact that there are 12 minor prophets. They write to the northern kingdom, to the southern kingdom, to the returnees, and in some cases to the nations surrounding God's people. We said that they were writing some between the 800s or so, somewhere in the 800s to the mid 3rd century, 5th century, the mid 400s BC. So we talked about that yesterday and talked about the divided kingdom and how the kingdom came to divide between the 10 northern tribes, the 2 southern tribes. The 10 northern tribes had their capital at Samaria, and of course the southern 2 tribes had their capital at Jerusalem. These 2 nations shared a heritage, a language, a religion, somewhat a border, were generally at peace with each other, forming alliances, uneasy alliances at times. But there were times when there was conflict between the 2 nations. What we want to talk about today, the international scene, the nations that surround Judah and Israel, that produce a lot of the topics addressed in the Minor Prophets, and some important dates. And then tomorrow we'll introduce the themes that kind of tie all the 12 minor prophets together. We said yesterday they're minor prophets not because they're less important, not in any way are they less important, they just wrote shorter books. Although, as we said yesterday, some of those books are pretty long. So that narrow strip of Palestine, that narrow strip between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea, roughly as far north as the Sea of Galilee, as far south as the Negev Desert beneath the Dead Sea. That narrow strip of property that is the promised land given to Moses is of great strategic importance at the time. It is the land bridge, really, that connects the superpowers in that part of the world, in that last millennia BC, between 1000 BC and the birth of Jesus. And we need to talk about these superpowers. Egypt is always there as a superpower, but it's not always the most dominant superpower, because it is separated by the Sinai Peninsula, by the Red Sea, by some geographical boundaries. It's not really subject to invasion and the kind of political transition that takes place among the other major empires. But Egypt is always there and always in the consciousness of the people of Palestine, both the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. Then there are the Assyrians in the upper Mesopotamia area, who are dominant early in this history. It is the Assyrians that will haul off the northern kingdom into captivity, and there will be no return, as there is for the southern kingdom. So the Assyrians are as violent and vicious a people as have ever been in human history. They are campaigners, marauders. They built enormous cities. They had a powerful military. They were merciless and ruthless when they conquered a people. One of the things they would do when they conquered a people was to displace them immediately and scatter them, so that group of people could not maintain their own cultural identity and integrity, and thus threaten Assyria from within. They were replaced by the Babylonians. The Babylonians among the ancient peoples really are the enlightened empire, the Babylonians allowed groups to stay in their culture in their cultural groups to maintain their cultural identities. Even when the Jews of the southern kingdom were hauled off into captivity, they were allowed to continue to pursue their religion. We get a real feel for this and what their experience was like from reading the book of Ezekiel, but also from reading the book of Daniel. The southern tribes prospered. It's not that captivity was a picnic. It was not. It was violent. It was awful. Psalm 137 lets us know what it was like to experience. But once they were taken into captivity and they were integrated into Babylonian society, they did well. Then there are the Persians. The Persians really have the largest empire. They have the greatest military power, the largest influence culturally, politically of the empires. It will be the Persians who allow the Jews of the southern kingdom to go back and try to rebuild Jerusalem, the walls of Jerusalem and the temple of Jerusalem. And then on the horizon are the coming of the Macedonian Greeks and then the Romans, and that factors not into the politics and the history of the time, but the prophecy itself will look forward to the coming of the Macedonian Greeks and the Romans. Okay, we're going to do one more session on the historical background of this time period, and then we're going to talk a bit about the themes that tie the minor prophets together throughout. Thank you so much for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. We'll continue with our introduction to the minor prophets tomorrow.